Hi everyone. Uh, Today I would like to talk about this another important topic that I've always kind of hinted in the previous videos. But now I want to talk and discuss a lot much more deeper. If you already watched my other YouTube videos in this channel, you will probably realize that most especially one of the most important, I would say even probably deeply existential and philosophical dilemma that I have is this whole quote unquote reality versus imagination dilemma. So it's a, again, let me repeat, it's a reality versus imagination. It's a dilemma, existential philosophical dilemma. So I will talk about it more in detail. Okay, so where do I start? This is kind of like a very spontaneous video. And again, as always, I want to remind you that English is not my first language. Okay, so yeah. And by the way, I already kind of reveal in the profile. You can see that I already reveal my real name and everything. So I've decided not to keep it kind of like not keep it secret anymore. So yeah, basically now you can see actually this is my secondary YouTube channel. And if you want, I haven't linked to my first YouTube channel, but you can actually just Google or YouTube search uh, my name there. I already put it in my YouTube description or profile. I've already just updated it. So yeah, um, now you know me. You should already know me. For some of you who are really curious about me, you can actually look it up. Anyway, okay, back to the main topic again. My whole life, I would say, most of my life, I'm still actually, I've been struggling a lot, and even perhaps even deeply with this quote unquote reality versus imagination. It's a human, I would say it's a human's or consciousness problem, in a way, and I've discussed and I've talked also with some people about it, on even consulted with AI, chat with AI, you know, whether it's ChatGPT or DeepSeek or Grok from X Twitter, or even basically just an AI meta AI or AI overview from Google search is quite good too sometimes. It can be quite deep actually. It can go deep actually. Yeah, deeper than most people think, and or most people use it, normally. Because yeah, most people just use it maybe for work, for job, or anything, practical. But for me, I'm using it for existential discussion, philosophical, deep discussion, like this. So the asking the bigger question, the so-called quote unquote the biggest questions of life. Okay, so anyway, yeah. So what is this about? The reality versus imagination dilemma is basically, I just knew that it's actually already a even century long philosophical debates, discussion, arguments, or even philosophy. Basically that talk about this sort of like quote unquote reality versus imagination dilemma. I'm not sure if I spell it, if I pronounce it right correctly. Again, English is not my first language. So yeah, as the name shows, it's basically about, you know that basically our reality, I will argue our reality, our real life, our real world will never be able to match up or to live up to our wildest, to humans wildest imagination. you know for example, I'm talking not about just any mundane imagination that even most people probably have. Sorry about being harsh and blunt. But I'm talking about the most creative, out of this world kind of imaginations. I'm sure, actually, even many of you or most of you probably know also about this. Let's say, for example, all in those fantasy or sci-fi, science fiction movies, films, or novels, books, or if you watch like anime, or read manga or comic books, stuff like that. um, you will know what I'm talking about. All those interesting, wonderful, exciting world, universe. You know, um, it's fiction. But it's much more interesting than this real world, the real life, the reality, the world, the life that we're living in right now. I'm sure a lot of you actually would even probably relate, even perhaps deeply relate and agree with me, right? You know, like, if you look at our reality, if you look at our everyday life, what is it about? You just go basically, you just keep repeating over and over again and again, the same thing over and over and over again and again and again, every single day, every day. you know Basically, you just wake up, and then you eat, and then what, either you go to school, you go to university, college, you're studying, or you're working, at a job, career, business, or whatever it is. And then what, you go from 9 to 5, or it's the same basically with business or career or entrepreneur or whatever it is. You work until like at night, late afternoon or night, evening, and then you go eat again, and then some of you may be socializing, or whatever, with family, or relationships, or whatever it is. And then what, you go eat, and then you do some, maybe you do some, oh yeah, you do some errands, routines, like washing dishes, shopping, and then doing laundry, dirty clothes and everything, cleaning up the house and everything, and then you eat at night, and then you go back to sleep, and then you repeat again. The cycle is always like that, right? Wake up, go to work, and then sleep, wake up, go to work, sleep, wake up, go to work, sleep, like that. It's like that. Or in some cases, maybe if you have like illness or disease or everything, or you're even if you're not doing anything, you will be bored. You will bored with life. Like, you will, boredom. Arthur Schopenhauer, the famous philosopher, pessimistic philosopher, said that life is a pendulum swing between pain and boredom. And I would agree with him. I agree with him, actually, Arthur Schopenhauer. Yeah, that's basically reality. But I would argue also, like, I think the reason that why most people, I will even say, most people probably are just, just they don't see any problem with it. I would say, like, normal people or normies, quote unquote. Why they can, just go happy, get happy go lucky. They can just enjoy life. Just live in the present moment. Live, love, all those, generic cliche, standard, normies, mainstream way of life. Accepted society standards, norms, and rules, or lifestyle. Right? It's because, I'm sorry, I hate to say this, but most people don't have most people are just I how to say, you can separate people into some categories. I'm sorry if I keep jumping around, but I'm kind of scatterbrained now. Again, remember that this is a very spontaneous video. I just basically talk as I'm thinking, without any plan or anything, no, without any notes or whatever. So this is come like a free, sort of like freestyle, whatever in my mind, in whatever I think, whatever thoughts I have or feelings I have, deeply. So yeah, people, you can categorize into, those people that perhaps, they don't they don't imagine a lot, I would say. They will just, I don't know, they have little to or lacking imagination. These people are a lot. There's a lot of people actually. They don't have the, well, even if they watch movies, even if they watch some films, movies, they just watch. They just simply watch, and then when the movie is over, they just go back to reality. They just go back to whatever it is that they're doing. Whether they go to eat, whether they go back to work, or they go back to their daily routinities, or whatever it is. Go back home, and or if you're watching like Netflix or whatever it is, or playing games, that's it. They can just turn it off, and then life as usual, business as usual. Nothing happens. It's just, yeah. There are a lot of people like this. I would say even majority of people, I would argue, more majority of people or human beings are like this. But then I think, I would say personally, in my opinion, there is a second type of people. It's people who can actually they are usually creative kind of people, the creative type. They usually they have vivid vivid imagination, lively imaginations. They're quite pretty imaginative. I'm a musician myself, by the way. If you look at my primary YouTube channel, you will notice right away that I'm a musician actually. I play piano, and I compose and I write songs and everything. At least I used to, but now I'm still active too, in the music communities and everything, like stuff like that. Anyway, for me, musician, right? I don't know which you, I don't know which you, but for me, I have always like this very very active imagination, over imagination even. There is a symptom nowadays called maladaptive daydreaming, MD, maladaptive daydreaming. You can Google it, look it up if you want. And I can deeply relate with it, even though I've never been diagnosed, formally clinically diagnosed with it. It still remain undiagnosed and stuff like that. But I can actually deeply relate with the description. So anyway, this second type of people, they can imagine, they have creativity. They are usually, maybe they create music. They make songs, or they make like an art, whether it's a drawing, painting, or I don't know, stories, novels, or anything, movies, films, or game, or anything like that. Basically art, right? So they pour it out in their artworks, but then they stop right there. They just simply express it, and they're already content with it. You know what I mean? They already content with it. They already fulfilled their life. They already fulfilled by their creativity. I'm not talking about not necessarily famous or wealthy or rich. They're not even that. That's probably more of the former, the first type that I've talked, the majority of people, a lot of people like that. I'm talking about the second type. It doesn't necessarily have to be, they have to be, they have to make a lot of money. Even though nowadays, in today's capitalistic era, 21st century era, everything is all about money, profits, hustle culture, flexing, trending, hype, how many likes, followers, FYP, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Reels, short videos, all like that, engagement, content creators. No, I'm not talking about that, not that shallow, generic, superficial stuff. I'm talking about deeper, like basically these people, they can actually already enjoy their creativity, by I myself is actually also like that, maybe, I enjoy playing piano, I enjoy playing music, playing in the orchestra, playing in the community, like, I don't know, and I used to play in band and everything, I enjoy it, I compose songs, I used to be active composer, songwriter, I enjoy it, but I want to talk more now about I want to go much more deeper, and probably this is the deepest, as deep as I can go, So the third type, which is the third type, is me, I'm talking about me myself, but from chatting with AI, chat AI, it says that it belongs to maybe like philosopher, visionary thinkers, uh, some very creative people, even artistic people, they can also sometimes belong to this third category, and it's what I want to talk about. This type of people, I'm sorry by the way for the noise, if you hear the noise, if you can hear the noise, it's from my outside of my house, just ignore it, okay, don't bother it, okay, sorry about that. So the third type, the deepest, which is, I would say the deepest is, I even personally thought that it was just only me, I was alone in feeling or thinking like this, but turns out no, when I chat with AI, I Google, I try to quote unquote research by myself, mostly online, or even read some books, philosophical books or anything like that, and even also maybe talk with, I don't know, few people, online or in real life or anything like that. I come to the conclusion that, yeah, I'm not alone, I'm not really that alone. Actually, there are some people throughout human history, actually, I would say that actually, as long as human being exists, human species exists, humanity exists, mankind, whatever it is, there are some, or I would argue maybe tiny, small minority of people who would belong to this quote unquote third category third type, which is people who deeply feel, think, and internalize, and ruminating, pondering, even perhaps almost obsessively, like me, for example, about this whole reality versus imagination dilemma, it's a consciousness problem, actually. I would say one of the consciousness problem, which is it's very rarely discussed, even, unfortunately. It's like, where does imagination come from? Why does it exist? What it is for? Is there any evolutionary use of it? If you come to think about it, if you think deeply about it, what's the point? If we're talking about survival, purely from the survival, point of view, evolutionarily speaking, there is no need for imagination. For some, imagination is only useful for some utility, utilization. For example, like, maybe I've read, it's so you can imagine and planning, a few steps ahead, like what's going to happen, or imagining if there are some potential threats or challenges and everything like that, or for brainstorming ideas, so you can come up with solution, and that's practical, that's pragmatic, practical, that's realistic, right? But I'm not talking about that. Again, I'm talking about out of this world, fantasy fictions, imagination type. Like, why people imagine dragons, for example, there is no use of it. Or imagine like magic, for example, magic, What's the point? There is no point. you know I guess I want to continue discussing about. I forgot to discuss about this. For example, if nowadays there's a talk about, I've actually talked about this. I've discussed about this, sorry, in the previous videos. Actually, I'm talking about, like, the nowadays there is a concept of, like, multiverse, especially if you're watching, like, Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU. There's this hype. Currently there is a, not really hype, but quite hype, actually, in some circles, about, the upcoming Avengers Doomsday movie film, right? Robert Downey Jr. and, Tony Stark and everything, the variant or everything like that, in the, in upcoming in the December, right? December. I cannot wait. I personally can't wait to watch it, because it's talking about all this, very interesting. I would say, personally, I find it very interesting about multiverse, and then parallel reality, parallel universe, alternate reality, or dimension, and then, there's also the isekai concept, isekai genre in the anime, manga, or light novels, and stuff like that. Even in the famous Korean solo leveling, if you have heard about it, watch it. Even, it's all about isekai, right? Isekai, and then many other things. And then you also have, like, religion. Yeah, I'm talking. Yeah, exactly. Religion, spirituality. Yes, exactly. It's talking about what? It's talking about heaven, paradise, or nirvana, or whatever it is. What I'm talking about. Afterlife, which is basically still unproven, logically, rationally speaking, and factually speaking, right? If we're being really, really strictly objective about it and factual about it, there is still no proof. At best, we only have, like, anecdotal proof, evidence, but we cannot have, like, universal proof, evidence, right? So it's just from personal stories, or testimony, or whatever it is, but we don't know. You don't know. I don't know. Like, whether it's true or not. Whether it's real or not, right? All this concept of, like, God, spiritual, or even, like, law of attraction, things like that, the universe, energy, vibration, and even higher reality, higher dimension. I would love all of those to be true, but we don't know, right? Again, let's talk objectively. Let's talk logically, rationally, okay, realistically, like, pragmatically. So, yeah. So again, back to my main point. Why all of this exists? Why? If we're talking about from the evolutionary theory, at least, from the Charles Darwin, or scientific science, theories like this, principles, basically, there is no use, right? Logically, rationally, there is no use for all this out of this world fantasy, imagination, science fictions, and everything. Science fiction, by the way, not all science fiction can become science facts. Right? We have, like, flying cars and things like that in the Back to the Future. Where is it? There is no such thing. Or, time travel, or even space travel. Elon Musk, he's trying with his SpaceX and everything, travel to Mars and everything. At the best we have right now, even in the 21st century era right now, we only have, like, Voyager, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Voyager, it's unmanned, basically unmanned, it's no human, but, it can probe and take a picture of, the galaxy, and, far away from here, from planet Earth. We cannot see it. We can only depend on all this, technology, right? I don't have telescope. I wish I could have telescope. That's why I've always been interested in astronomy too. Not astrology, by the way. It's different, okay? Astronomy. Yeah. because yeah. So anyway, sorry for jumping around scatterbrain. So why all of this exists? If you think about it, isn't it absurd? It's kind of absurd if you think about it. I've talked about absurdism philosophy specifically in my previous video. If you look at my YouTube channel, you will find, I've talked about it, in details. I've discussed, I've talked about it, absurdism. Again, let me just very, very shortly, I will say, I really like actually the concept of absurd, the word absurd, how to read it, how to say it, absurd, right? I agree with it, but I don't necessarily agree. I even strongly disagree with Albert Camus conclusion, which is from the myth of Sisyphus. I don't agree with his conclusion, which is, I would say it's just another coping mechanism, toxic positivity, optimism bias. Imagine Sisyphus happy. No. This absurd life doesn't mean that we have to, everyone, each one of us, we could, you just simply accept it, and then just be happy, create our own meaning, or all this existentialism stuff or everything like that. No, it can be depressing, actually, downright depressing. Like, for example, if you're like me, I found it to be like ridiculous and nonsensical, doesn't make sense, and it's frustrating and it's depressing, to be very honest. Like, our reality can never live up, we can never match, we can never live up, we can never reach the highest, the infinite, the limitless imagination high up there. We cannot ever reach it. At the best, we can only convert it, or so to speak, we can only create a little bit of it, which is, I want to bring up to the next deeply philosophical. I've chatted with Chat AI about it. Thanks to Chat AI nowadays. See, technology, right? Yeah. Now I can know, actually, some concept, actually, from, like, if you have about, sorry about the motorcycle sound, but you can hear my voice, right? Anyway, if you know, there are some philosophy that talks about it, that discuss about it. For example, let me just mention briefly from Plato's allegory of cave, his ideas of forms, which is or there is also an idea of noumena, how to say it, I forgot, something like that, basically, or ideas, the realm of ideas, so this archetypal, sorry for my bad pronunciation, again, I'm not English speaker. So archetype, all of this, and then even Arthur Schopenhauer also talk about this. Even Albert Camus, in his absurdism, talk about this. Basically the reality versus imagination concept, or just in different language, different forms, but it's the desire for meaning, but versus our indifferent, meaningless existence, universe. We as a human being, we want to search, we yearn, we deeply want meaning, but sometimes, or oftentimes even, life doesn't work that way. That's why we have religion, spirituality. Sorry to be harsh, to be blunt. Maybe we invent those things, just to cope, for coping mechanism. Because humankind cannot bear too much reality. I think it's a quote from T.S. Eliot, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. People don't like the truth. People hate the truth, the harsh truth, the harsh reality. That's why it's depressing, it's frustrating, There is there is a psychological phrase for it. It's called depressive realism. depressive realism. You can look it up, Google, if you want, which basically means that depressive people usually have more accurate perception of reality than quote unquote healthy normal people. Yes. So all this absurdity, why, you know, and it's so depressing, if you think about it, like, even I don't know, in the far future, can we ever actually discover, like, what is this all about, like, why do we have, why at least some, or at least few of us, human beings, there are some really, really creative, talented, visionary, artistic, creative, imaginative, artists, or people who have like this, can create so amazing, interesting, exciting world, universe in their fantasy fictions, whether it's movie, films, novels, stories, mythology, anime, manga, comic books, light novels, web novel, whatever it is, games, whatever it is, right? Art, basically, artworks. So why can human create all of these things, but why cannot we live inside of it? We can only quote unquote live temporarily when we read, or when we watch, or when we play games, or whatever it is, but then we have to snap, wake up, wakey, back to reality, things like that, we have to live we are forced, basically, we are pressured to live in this real life, in this real world, in this reality, and then some of you, or even perhaps many of you, most of you, will say, yeah, but life is good, I can enjoy reality, I'm not, this video is not for the most, even for, I'm sorry, I hate to say this, maybe this video is not for you. If you think about it, you're just the average, normal, ordinary, normies people, then, I'm talking deeper, much more deeper, for those of you, few of you maybe, who can relate, just like me, that can feel, that can think like, oh, this reality is just not enough, or maybe just like, Thanos famously said in Avengers Infinity War, reality is often disappointing, right? Yeah, he's right. Reality is often disappointing. That's a quote from Thanos. Thanos. Okay? Whatever you spell it, how you spell it, or pronounce his name. It's very, very good quote that I can deeply relate, as an imaginative person myself. Yeah. And also, I have to admit, maybe in my life, even though I'm grateful, I'm thankful for my, quote unquote, still quite privileged life, even here, but, nevertheless, I'm still disappointed, my life is disappointing, I have to admit, I even admit mostly it's my fault, it's my mistake, but that's not the point of this video, but the point of this video is to admit that for some people, life is not always happy ending, if some people are happy, some people are not, some people are lucky, some people are not, I've talked about this in my previous videos, you can watch it, but I'm not going to repeat it again here, because it will take long, it will take too much time again, even now I see this already 34, almost 35 minutes. So already half an hour. So yeah, I have to wrap it up quickly now. Okay. So yeah, this video is for those of you who can really feel like, life, their real life, their real world, their reality is disappointing or boring, mundane, boring, so banal, so petty, trivial, and you look at all this society are so vain, so shallow, so superficial, so coarse, I don't know how to say it anymore. It's just so blunt. It's just so bland. Sorry, it's bland. Bland. It's mundane. It's boring. Reality is boring. That's the point of this video that I want to make. Reality is boring. That's why I hate reality. Maybe I will make it this the title of this video. I hate reality. Just like in the movie The Matrix, Agent Smith, he said this. I hate this world. I hate this reality, because it's trapping. We are stuck. We're trapped here. Some of us are forced pressure, or maybe perhaps many people are forced, trapped, stuck in this in this every day, day after day, keep repeating over and over and again. They're stuck, they're trapped, but they cannot escape. Because sooner or later reality will catch up to you, right? Wake up to reality. That's why wake up to reality. Reality is cruel, reality is cold, reality is depressing, I would say. Even not everyone can be successful, not everyone can be happy, not everyone can be fulfilled. I'm sure this video is more about this kind of people, this type of people. Even though maybe it's just few, or maybe I don't know even whether it's few or many of you who can find and relate with this video. You know what I'm talking about. This video is for you, actually, or for people, if you're like me, people who have very active imagination, over imagination, that this everyday life, everyday reality cannot contain, cannot ever, will never gonna able to match up, to live up to my wildest imagination or fantasy, or thoughts, whatever it is, ideas, vision, whatever it is. So I will close this video. I'm sorry if maybe I forgot to, I forgot, I don't know if I forgot, because I don't write any notes. I should maybe, in the next video, should plan it more, before recording this video, rather than just spontaneously talk, as I record this video. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I should consider it in the next video. But anyway, I'm not even sure that anyone is watching this video. Yeah, see, reality, right? It's disappointing. But yeah, so for closing, I will say, my final last point is, I've talked about this a little bit in before, right? But as a closing, I just want to say, I don't know. We don't know. Maybe even even AI, artificial intelligence, it admits, when I chat, when I'm chatting with AI, it admits that nobody knows for sure. We don't know, like, what this is all about. That's the most honest position. Philosophically speaking, there is even a quote about it. That's the most honest is to admit that we don't know. Basically agnostic about it. About this whole existence, universe. Life, this world. This reality. Whatever it is. Like, yeah, like, why there is something rather than nothing, right? The most famous deepest philosophical question. Yeah, so we don't even know, like, why all we have human imagination like this, even not for practical purpose, like I've already discussed in this video, all this out of this world fantasy imaginations, art, there is no practical utility, practical, pragmatic, realistic apply, to apply realistically, there, no. In fact, it can hinder, it can even hinder, or it can even, like a boomerang, it can sort of like attack back. I cannot find the right word for this now. My mind is kind of blank. it's kind of scatterbrain. But you know what I'm talking about, right? It can actually backfire. Oh yeah, it can backfire to us. It can backfire to us so badly that, for if you're like me, I have like existential depression for a long time. Existential depression, which is far a lot much more worse than the temporary, just the usual regular temporary existential crisis or existential dread or terror or whatever it is. I have like existential OCD, so to speak. Undiagnosed, I know. Because the psychiatrist here is still still sucks, I would say, in my country here, Indonesia. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, I have existential depression largely because of this quote unquote reality versus imagination dilemma, conundrum, whatever it is, this deeply existential philosophical, question, unanswerable question, still a mystery, but not necessarily I would say, yeah, it's amazing mystery, but it can be depressing too, because I have to, sooner or later I have to wake up and go back to reality again, and if my life is still disappointing like this, then every day I wake up, I'm trapped in this life, basically every day, and there are even some worse people, sorry, people with worse condition, people who have it so much worse off, I have a friend who is in chronic terminal illness, disease, she's in hospital right now. What about her? People who are dying, people who are in the war, poverty, war zone, all this stuff, what I'm talking about, right? Not everybody can be happy, life is not fair. I've talked about this in the previous video, if you want, so I will not repeat again in this video, in this particular video. So yeah, I guess I have to stop right here. Sorry if I'm forgetting some concept or some things that I want to talk about, but I think for the most part, I think, yeah, I already say what I have to say. And also sorry about all the noisy noises, but hopefully you can hear my voice loud and clear, yeah. Okay, and you can also, I hope, even though English is not my first language, but I hope you can hear it, you can understand it clear, you got my point, right? I hope. So yeah, this video is for, at least, especially for those of you people who are somehow, hopefully, able to find this video and maybe relate even deeply with this video, if you're like me. So I don't feel alone, at least I'm not alone, hopefully. Okay, so I will stop here. Thank you for listening, as usual. Take care, everyone.